You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor. Subscribe to the channel. Leave your comments below. Be sure to smash that like button. Shady, we appreciate you, man. How are you?
I'm doing fine. I'm a lot less busy than I normally would be in years past, which I think can be the theme of a lot of what we're going to discuss here in the next couple segments.
Well, so that's a really good point. And we've talked about this now every year that they've gone to their early signing day. It's made February much of a non-issue. But for where LSU's class is, if they didn't add another player, if they were just done, right? No more transfers, no more high school guys, would they be whole? Like, did they address every need they had?
I don't think you ever feel comfortable enough to say that, but I will say with the signing class, there isn't really a spot beyond maybe a D tackle that you say, hey, look, you didn't sign one, but that's negated in a large way, and just how they approached kids in recruiting the position by the portal, and knowing that you can go into the portal and get guys who are experienced at whatever position it is. So I'll put it this way, of the normal, remember back in the day, signing caps, right? Not too long ago, you could only sign 25. Everybody would do the math on counting back and guys enrolling early. Now there's no cap other than be at or under 85 scholarship players by fall camp. LSU signed 25 high school guys, so they're still managing that roster the same way. You add in 11 transfers, and you're good to go. So I would say right now, if they never added a single another player, transfer, high school kid, I would feel more than good about saying they addressed their needs.
So with 25 high school kids signed, and the number of transfers, as you mentioned, at 11, that's a dramatically lower number than they had a year ago. Shea, I think it was 19. Tell me if I'm wrong on that number from a year ago.
It was 19 transfers and 15 high school signings.
Right. So 19. It was so clear they've sort of inverted those even more so, which is fantastic to see. Do you suspect we'll continue to see that number of transfers taken drop, or is that going to be double-digit transfers going to be a core of their recruiting strategy?
Great question. I think that maybe Brian Kelly referenced this at one point, but he said he wants it to trend a little bit more in the direction that they've gone so far. So if you think about a year ago, they were rebuilding the roster completely. They had to take, 20 transfers, basically. They were lower on high school guys, 15. And then, as you noted, that number gets inverted. I think they want to be in the 27 to 8 range of high school guys, and then you're taking 7 or so transfers each class, and then you're managing the roster, kind of your current roster, well enough to where taking, what would that be, 35 guys, something in that range a year would be more than enough to get you through.
Shea Dixon is with us from On3, the Bengal Tiger. Tomorrow is the February signing day. Wednesday's February signing day. Let's talk about some of the players that are uncommitted right now that LSU is in on. Let's start with the one that's going to commit this evening, Jamel Howard, the defensive lineman out of Chicago. What can you tell us there?
Yeah, and he's even gone back and forth on that. He told us at one point this afternoon that he might commit tomorrow now, which would be the normal signing day. Regardless, I think the feeling here is that he's probably going to stay closer to home. Wisconsin, a school he was once committed to that went through an obvious coaching change, is viewed as a team that would be seen as the leader, whether he's announcing tonight or tomorrow. And this is a guy that LSU only offered a month ago, so in December, I should say. So hasn't been on the board very long, but did give him a visit. And he's at that defensive tackle position, which is one I mentioned as them not having a true nose tackle type player in the high school class. They addressed it in the portal. But I think that it's basically best described as they were getting near December signing day. You see you don't have a defensive, nose tackle committed or set to sign. You offer one of the best available guys, and he takes it to February, and you take your swing. And if you come up short, it's kind of like it would have only been Wayne Yap had it not ever been a guy you pursued.
He's on Twitter at Shea Dixon. Shea, let's talk about some of the other guys. Are Are there other guys who will have a hat on the table Wednesday for LSU that we need to keep an eye on?
They had been recruiting Nicholas Harbor at one point, who was a big five-star athlete. He was wanting to play D-line. Jamar Cain had been recruiting him as a D-end, and then he decided he wants to play tight end, and then he ultimately this month didn't even give LSU a visit. But your question brings me to what I think is kind of one of the bigger points of signing day, or at least what used to be signing day, right? February's National Signing Day. 2018 was the first year they implemented that early signing period where kids could start to sign in December, and we saw more and more and more guys start to, go ahead and shut things down then, and they moved up the entire recruiting calendar to where juniors could take official visits in the spring, and it used to be only you could do that as a senior from the fall moving forward, and December would be and January would be big times for that. So with the whole calendar moved up, I counted this before we came on, 286 of the top 300 players on On3 already signed in December. So that's 14 guys who didn't sign. Of those 14, 8 go into tomorrow uncommitted or already committed. So in the On3 top 300, the top 300 high school football recruits in the country, 2% of them enter tomorrow uncommitted and actually announcing on the traditional signing day. So to even be in it with 1 or 2 guys right now is rare, at least given the current lay of the land and what would be at least I should say, clarify that by saying to be in it with the top players in the country is rare because there aren't many top players in the country left uncommitted or unsigned.
Yeah, it's pretty wild how it's all changed. Do you think, Shea, that we will see any type of correction? I know coaches have opined about maybe moving up the early signing period to the summer or eliminating it altogether. Do you foresee any changes?
I mean, I can't rule it out. They seem to be changing a lot.
Right.
When we talk NIL and moving up already in early signing period 5 years ago or in the 2018 class. So it wouldn't surprise me. I don't, all the coaches have different opinions on it. Football is the only sport that doesn't operate really on that November and April signing periods. February was always a standalone type of thing. But no matter what, if it stays, as long as they're keeping a signing period in December, that becomes part of it, then that's when most kids are going to commit. Because if you're committed, and this is what every college coach will tell you, Matt, if you're committed to us and a signing day arrives and you don't sign, we don't consider you to be all that committed anymore. And with the portal and everything else, you can just go out there and get somebody else. So kids want their spots, and also that means enrolling early. A lot of these kids now, more than ever, go to school in January of what would be their senior years and just miss a whole semester of high school to go ahead and get acclimated to college. So it'll just mean that February, much like tomorrow's National Signing Day, is nothing, compared to what it used to be.
Yeah. All right, Shea, here's a question from Joe. Said, why did LSU not pursue any of the remaining offensive and defensive linemen in the state? Any idea of who's on the board who might have been a target?
There were only a couple of kids. I'd say 1 or 2 still out there. Caden Jones ended up an offensive tackle committing to Florida. He'll sign tomorrow. And then the other was Kyron Borda out of the New Orleans area, and he's going to go ahead and ink with Arizona State. I believe he committed last week. So really just 2 guys that they had not been recruiting heavily and had just held out and were getting other offers and ultimately are headed outside the state. So best guess there is how I explained it.
Shea, do you think, by the way, that they will target offensive linemen in the portal? Because that's something I was told near the end of the regular season, that they knew they were going to lose a lot of those sort of veteran backups and that they knew they were going to have to do work there. Do you anticipate them making any headway there in the portal in the springtime?
Well, I don't know about headway, but I will say that 2 guys have already, Jake Renfro at Cincinnati, a starting center, had made a visit and ultimately committed to Wisconsin and followed Luke Fickell from Cincinnati to Wisconsin. And then Miami center, who I believe is still in the portal because he's not going to go anywhere until the summer, reported an offer from them. So they at least seem to be entertaining the idea of interior offensive linemen. Obviously, one of those guys is already on another campus and done, but maybe in the spring window, yes, I could see it if they've already tried doing it twice.
Yeah. Ja'Kai Clark. I had to Google it because I forgot the name too. But Ja'Kai Clark is the guy from Miami. Let's see. Vino said, ask Shea, who do you feel will be the next breakout freshman at LSU next season? Any player or position, Shea, out of this class of the freshmen that you think is poised to play a big role in 23?
Yeah, I mean, if there were an odds-on betting favorite, it would be Deshaun Womack. Now, granted, he just had a surgery on his shoulder to get some stuff cleaned up from after his senior season. So I don't know how much spring ball he's going to be a part of. But if he's healthy by the fall, which all expectations are that he will be, he's your heir apparent to B.J. Ojulari. So I would say that he's a guy that at least should be playing right away or getting some serious run. And that's not a surprise. He's their highest-ranked player. Hey, I won't rule out Day'Lon Hurd. If we saw what Will Campbell and Emory Jones did this year, Brian Kelly has no problem, or I should say Brad Davis as well, with putting young guys out there if they're talented enough. And I think we've seen every year, it's like we have to remind ourselves of this in the offseason. I can't remember the last time, even the national championship season, that LSU was just rocking a starting five on the O-line out of the gates that they never changed or toyed around with. So I would put Hurd in that mix. So I guess I'm cheating, but I'll pick their 2 5-stars.
That's not cheating at all. That makes a lot of sense. By the way, you mentioned Womack having the shoulder surgery, and also the possibility of him being the edge or the jack replacement for Ojulari. No thought that maybe one of the transfers like Ovie Ogofu or from Texas or the edge from Oregon that they got in?
Yeah. I think the reason you take those two guys, Ovie Ogofu had played at Notre Dame for a few years, so had obviously been recruited and signed by Brian Kelly. Then he went to Texas and played. And actually, if you put on the film, Matthew Brune at our site done a film breakdown on him. And in some big games, Bama and other games, he was pushing the pocket. He played well. And if he's a rotational guy for you with 1 year left, you'll take it, especially because I think he, more so than anyone at Gofu, but also Braden Swinson, who's coming out of Oregon as an edge rusher. He's younger, but he's not a high school freshman coming in. They can bridge the gap until Womack's there, right? We didn't see Harold Perkins just come out and do what he did at the end of the year in week one. In fact, he was on special teams, I think, getting penalties for hitting guys late or whatever. He was too bored with his special teams life. You've got to move him on. But by about a month in, Harold Perkins was all over the place. So I would think that those two guys really both rotational, but also help teach Womack, help bring him along, and give the staff enough time before they feel like he's ready for, as a true freshman, for kind of a full-time starting duty.
A couple more here with Shea Dixon. Scott said, ask Shea, to your knowledge, what LSU recruit in history had the most red carpet 5-star treatment provided? Does anything like that stand out, Shea, where they went above and beyond for a player?
Leonard Fournette, I would have to imagine, was an above and beyond. If you'll remember, I don't know what defines red carpet. If red carpet's just whining and dining a kid. But a year before Leonard even signed, Les Miles was on signing day committing known recruiting violations of saying, we're going out to get Leonard Fournette, the best player in the country, as the gem of the next class. Right. And I would say that's red carpet treatment. But yeah, I don't know, guys like that. The Willie Williams kind of saga. Do you remember that when he wrote a diary, I think it was in the Orlando Sentinel, about what recruiting visits were like? And he was talking about just getting wined and dined with lobsters and everything was market price and all of this. And it became this sort of cult phenomenon as the first look into what whining and dining 18-year-old kids was really like. Yeah. And since then, I wondered if it's tapered off a bit. Now it seems much more regimented. Back then, I think they were just throwing money around and everyone was having a wild time. So,
let's see if we get a couple more. Shea Dixon is with us from On3. Of course, he's on Twitter at Shea Dixon. Trey Simmons said, Shea, is Shelton Sampson going to be a day one starter? What do you think about Sampson and the wide receiver group, Shea?
I don't think he'll be a day one starter, and I don't think that's any knock on him. He was right behind Womack and Hurd as one of the highest ranked guys they signed. I think that they have some receivers who are going to be not starters who are talented enough to be starting. So any of these freshmen coming in and starting, I'd be surprised, but wide receivers play a lot. In fact, most years I'm hearing LSU fans complain that, everyone is getting into the game and they're not just sticking with 2 or 3 guys. So I do think he'll play, but start when you've got Neighbors and Brian Thomas and Lacey and Aaron Anderson coming in, and you could have a healthy Chris Hilton. I'll go on and on, but yeah, I would start might be pushing it.
All right, Shea, let's see if we can get one more in here. This is from Seth, who said, Shea, is LSU deep at running back like the old days when we had 3 or 4 NFL backs? If not, how can LSU get back there?
Well, I think isn't that a great question? I don't know, Matt.
Yeah.
You tell me. Would you rather have the bell cow, and not everyone's Leonard Fournette, or
Right.
would you rather have the old days when you were like Michael Ford, Alfred Blue, Terrence McGee, and you had like 4 or 5 guys that you were playing? Because I feel pretty confident saying that if they're bringing everybody back from last year, they're in that grouping of, oh, you've got like 4 or 5 guys that are like pretty good, solid backs.
I get
Which group would you rather be in?
For me, I would rather the Fournette, Geist, Darrell Williams scenario, where you had 3 NFL backs, as opposed to the guy that may step up and be the bell cow, as opposed to the cluster of a lot of real good backs, but not the elite transcendent back. I think I'd always rather have at least one guy that is the guy I know if I need to turn around and give it to him 30 times in the game, he'll go off. And I don't think LSU has that right now.
Well, the only way to get there is by recruiting someone who fits that type of bill. So get a 5-star running back. But I will say that quite often when LSU is good, it's because Louisiana giveth to the program in 2025 class. So these kids are about to be juniors in Louisiana.
Yeah.
There's probably 3 of the top 5 or 6 running backs in the country. I mean, if Frank Wilson plays his cards right, they will absolutely be stacking up on future NFL backs.
Awesome. Well, I look, that's been a core of what Brian Kelly has done throughout his career. Has always had a stable, at least a couple of backs that he can rotate, the thunder and lightning type deal. So I would love to see them get back to that level. He's Shea Dixon. An easier National Signing Day than in years past, certainly. He's on Twitter at Shea Dixon. On3, make sure you follow all the stuff there. You still got subscription deals going on over at On3, the Bengal Tiger?
Yeah, no more dollar per year. That has to cut out eventually, obviously. But
Right.
but there are some deals if you check the site, and monthly, yearly, whatever you want to jump on. So I appreciate it. Yes, a quiet signing day, but if anything pops, I will let you know, and I'll get on the show.
We appreciate it, Jay. Thanks for the time, man. Enjoy the day.
Anytime. Thanks, Matt.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.